than some of the others, and they were actually just there to enjoy that? Or do you think they all had like they're this? I need to get this. I need to be on the.
Holly even talked about when you get invited in, there's different, like some do it one time and then leave and they never come. They go back to their hometown. Like they fight for it because they're like, I already slept with him. I need to get something out of it. So all those girls that were there for 5 and 8 years, that's a long, especially in Playboy, because you do so much that how can you complain all these years later? A lot of those girls were there for a lot of.
Right.
So you put up with it this long, and now it's almost like you got a best friend and they're palling around and everybody's having a good, and then you like turn on them and be, I don't like what you did that. And how is that fair to your,
right?
Like they have it's not, you stayed and you put up with it and you put up with it and you saw these. And if he really did things with it, you didn't let anyone, you just let animals get abused or people get raped. You watch people get raped and you jump in and do something. Like a lot of them were saying they watched things.
Like he was saying that Jennifer Saginaw was admitted that he served her. She was in bed with like another. It's why wouldn't you say something to someone? And he was, I just kept quiet about it.
To keep the job, or doesn't.
That wouldn't fly. Nowadays.
I think you can drink if you're at home and your parents are there, and you don't have to be I think you can be younger. Really?
It's pretty like
even like back in the day.
21 and over.
This was a long time back in the 80s.
That is true. That was
the laws were different.
It was the early 80s when this was going.
Mm-hmm. Everything is.
I remember my dad used to send me to the store in downtown in Salida, and I would buy beer for him, and they would just sell it to me, and then I'd bring it home. And that was just their thing. I remember doing that at multiple for my dad, and it's astonishing how much that's changed over the years. So I'm sure it was more like socially acceptable to be able to have drinks or whatever when you're that age.
With parents, and apparently her dad was. So then they were like, I think he was there because he was probably giving them the. That's what I'm thinking. That's why that relationship, like, why not move the doctor in, kind of like Michael Jackson? I mean, you make friends with people, like it's networking. Makes it.
The doctor and there was a scene where Jennifer was talking about how they kind of trained how to examine she realized that a business, she called them said, the women were, I was just thinking about that. If you work in it, you are. That's the way it is. It just happened to be with this particular, they were, the commodity was hot nickel. And not only that, but like this whole lifestyle so that was a commodity. And it was almost like she had it when she was a kid. But I think her thing was that she called it the in half and all that.
Yeah.
And she had all this. And then when she realized that it wasn't what she thought it was, that's when she was, this is, I think we all kind of have that in our individual lives growing up. You think the world's one, and then all of a sudden you have your big adult moment, and then the world is not at all what I thought. You basically, then you go to explore it on your own.
I didn't understand why they would have kids there. I didn't understand that.
It seemed like they were really heavy on grooming them to be a part of that lifestyle when they got, and it kind of became apparent when Hef invited Jennifer into the room. That was, and I think she knew that when she got uncomfortable and she was, what's going on? And then she even said, after that moment, she realized the situation that she was in. And I like how many other people, like young girls that were like that, were kind of groomed in the same way, and then just kind of invited into the room. And then, so what's up?
But she also said that she had a book, and then they wanted to know what those dates, and then they got them all. So I think she also had a grudge there because this was like way back. And I believe she had a book deal, and she was doing, so they put the kibosh on it, but she wasn't talking about any of some of these other things about, so that came out. It's just the fact that he's dead, and now they're really like hitting it with all,
Do you think that maybe his absence from the company kind of lifted all of the gates that protected him? Even when this documentary came out, Playboy came out, and we validate the experiences of these, we support. So it is an entirely different company, and they've made a really
they're a lot different.
We're not associated with what passed. We're this direction. So maybe his absence from the company took away the protections that he had like built into it, because they said it straight up. His PR and marketing team would go and threaten people if they were going to say or publish anything that would defamate.
Oh, he was always threatening to sue. He was sue happy or threatening. So there was that threat. He's got more money than most. But a lot of the stuff already came out in some of the books. Like it's just kind of rehashed, but there's some news. But when those books were coming out, no one spoke up in defense of.
Right, okay.
So she was the main, but she wrote a book in 2017.
Have you read any of those books?
I did. She wrote and there was several books.
When you listened to the audiobook was there a lot of that's horrible moments in it?
It's eye-opening. I was asked to come into the room and smoke weed. As Bridget called me on the phone and asked me to smoke, and she told that we could just play around with we could just smoke, but to wear a thong, and if you wanted to have sex with him, to take your panty off. Like she said.
It does sound like he had a lot of things in place that basically just caters to, and like he really was the king of that.
But he's having, Bridget was doing that. Bridget's not taking that. She was like, basically, she tried to wrangle me.
So she was his
the weed, right? Bridget. Yeah. But then at the same, she says how she tries to get models to so they have a really bad photo shoot and then they don't get.
Really?
Or they make a fool out of themselves. So she was
you know me out about this. They interview journalists who weren't even like a part of any of the stuff that was, and they kind of covered some of these subjects after, but they talk as if they were there and witnessed the stuff. And I kind of wish they left out the other journalists from the.
It's a lot of
exactly what I was going to say. I don't know if they just needed to make the episode longer or to add more content to it, but I really don't trust anything that the journal, because being that they can say whatever they want, he's not going to sue them for. I would prefer them to keep the journalists out unless they were actually involved, saw some stuff, heard some stuff. That was really the only other thing that I really didn't like about just the journalists that are involved.
The guy that also said that he saw one of the models getting, he didn't do it. And then Sandra Theodore in episode, I believe she saw a girl getting raped, and she just waited. Watch it.
I missed that down.
But they said she was doing some nasty stuff with him for a lot of years. And now she's complaining because she's not there. I mean, it's just like when you're in a relationship and then the relationship is, then you have a lot of, right? But during you're having the time of your, right? 100. Smoking, hanging, spinning the.
I think that happens to a lot of, especially like young people, and they
have a
whole bunch of, and then once it's not fun, one thing that I did want to talk about just a little. Remember how we were talking about how Hef was on that TV show and he was debating that like radical feminist. I keep seeing a lot of things popping up on social media, and there's a lot of these feminists that are very anti-women showing their body or using their body as a means to generate income and stuff like that. It just reminded me of an article that came out a couple of years ago. It was written by a journalist up in Tahoe for the local, and she basically was just shitting on all the go-go dancers out there, and these women shouldn't have to be. And then one of my friends wrote back to that newspaper and was basically, you don't speak for all of us. The vast majority of us, this is we want to be there. We're here because we want. Nobody made us. And the fact that people are willing to pay to see us dance, this is ours. We made the choice. We had the ability to make the choice. And that's the whole premise of feminism is to have, whereas back in the day, women didn't have those choices. And they were forced into doing whatever it was that they either had to or they were excluded from. Just having that, I think, is pretty remarkable, as in that now women have so much more control over